Welcome to another video. In this video we'll talk about how to set the parent parameter from one page to another using a modal. So in Form Titan you would do this one page and then you would call a modal, but in Titan Web this goes next level and it looks very nice as well. So my use case is very simple. What I'm doing is I'm running a table, and table is bringing back all contacts from a specific account. This is the account, United States Hospital, and these are the contacts related to that account. Now, what I've done is I'm going to go ahead and configure a get, and that get, so let's put this button over here for a second, and put another button which is actually going to call this get. So drop it over here, we'll say run get. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assign the action that I created. So configure action, Salesforce action, and this is going to run my get. Alright, so click save, and I'll show you. And all it's doing is, the get is simple. Run the get where, account ID equals hospital, this ID, and then assign it here, and then when I run it, these are my contacts. Now what I want to do is I want to click on this button, new contact, have a modal open up, create the contact, pass it back to the parent, and then have the parent refresh. How do I do that? Okay, first thing you need to do is set up your variables. So tools, custom variable. This one is a global variable, so I'm going to call this global contact ID. All right, that's my variable, and this is available everywhere. Now I've set up a page 2, and page 2 has a couple of fields like first name, last name, and submit. It's very easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a local variable. So static here, and I'm going to call this pg2 contact ID. So this one I know it's on page 2, so it'll be the contact ID. Click apply. Alright, it's done. Now what I want to do is I want to set up my Salesforce action, which is going to fire and pass that ID to the pg2 contact ID. So how do I do that? Well, we go over here, interactivity, on-click action, configure action, Salesforce, configure integration, and we're going to set up a push. And what that push is going to do is going to create a contact. And then in the mapping, last name will be last name, first name will be first name, and then email will be email. And there's one more field I want to do, which is the account ID. So I'll take the account ID from here, and I will pop it in here, like that. And again, this is going to be a user action. So here we are. This is my create, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it to the pg2 contact ID, like that. Click apply, apply, and we're done. Now here's an interesting part. If I go to this page 2 and I look at my my static variable here, which was this one, I'm going to write a condition. I'm going to say if pg2 contact ID is not empty, then go ahead and pass the parameter, set parent parameters, and here you configure it. So you basically say that the the global ID will get passed from the page 2 contact ID. So the global ID, which is the parent, will get its value from here, pg2 contact ID. That's it. Click apply, 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 and then I'm just going to clone this, and it's going to run another one afterwards, which is just going to close the modal. So configure action, change the predefined to close modal. Apply, apply, apply. So that's done. And then on page 1, here's what I'm going to do. So let's go to page 1, and on this one I'm going to say when this is clicked, go to page 2, predefined, go to page, in fact actually what I'm going to do, instead of go to page, we're going to open it as a modal. So page 2, we choose page 2 in the redirect URL here, choose modal, this is the height, this is the width, I can hide the menu if I want and do that as well. Click apply, 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 save. Now one final thing I'm going to do is my custom variable, which is going to get passed from the child itself to the parent. So I'm going to run another query, which is, I'm going to say if global context ID is not empty, global context ID is not empty, run a Salesforce action, which is actually going to be doing the table get. And now this table is going to refresh and show me the new contact that's just been added. So I know there's a lot to digest here, but bear with me and I'll show you everything in play here. So last thing I want to do is switch on debug mode. It's already switched on. Let's go. Alright, so let's run the get. We've got 6 contacts. Let's create new. And then we'll add some data here. jason@usa.com. So now let's have a look at the debug mode. Remember, the PG2 contact ID is empty, so is the global contact ID. So what's going to happen is when I create this, it's going to pass the ID into the contact ID, and then it's going to get passed over to the global contact ID. And when the global contact ID is not empty, it's going to run my Salesforce action. So if I click submit, it's going to go ahead and run it, and it's run that, and boom, look at that, everything is there. And I'll show you the debug here. So look at that, global contact ID value has been passed from the child to the parent, and because we already conditioned that if it's not empty, run the table and show me all the values, and this is the new value we just added. There's a lot, as I said, a lot of moving parts in this video, so you really have to slow it down and try and understand what we're doing behind it, but that's how you run this functionality. And yeah, this is how it's done.